In this video, Chris Delaney from employmentking.co.uk and the author of What is Your Interview Identity shares some amazing remote job interview tips. Can't believe I got that all out in one go. He really shares some gold nuggets. I've just interviewed him. He is an absolute firecracker, so you want to check out this interview if you are thinking about getting a remote job at all, because you don't want to get to that final stumbling or that final block or stumbling block of the interview and stumble. So check it out. And welcome to the show, Chris. Very good to have you, Chris, from employmentking.co.uk. How are you, mate?
I'm really good, thanks. And I really appreciate you inviting me down to your show today.
Absolutely, of course. I'm really looking forward to what you've got to say. I've actually, late last year, been working in the background on a course that I'm creating. So, you know, all the stuff that you do and talk about is going to be super interesting. It's in that space of remote job, finding a remote job. So in terms of remote job interview tips, which is kind of the topic of this video, can you give the viewers some hot tips? First of all, actually, a bit of a background about yourself and why, that whole question, why should I listen to you? Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, like, who is this guy? Like, why should I listen to this guy?
Exactly.
So I've been helping people to pass job interviews for like the last 20 years. I specialize in helping people overcome their interview fears and phobias because I'm a hypnotherapist as well as a qualified careers advisor and interview coach. But the thing that makes me stand out is that I read lots of academic research around the psychology of how people are successful in the job interview, and I use that research paper to give people techniques to help them to be successful in their recruitment processes.
I love it. Anything that is backed by science and psychology and studies and papers and all that sort of stuff, it's the real deal. So, speaking of remote job interview tips, can you hit us with the first tip that you might have?
Yeah, so there's 3 rules to pass a job interview. So rule number 1 is identify the job criteria, so you know what you're talking about. Rule number 2, and this is the main one, by the way, be a self-promoter. We're so good at saying how rubbish we are, but in the job interview, you need to say how good you are. And then the third one is communicate with confidence. So they're the 3 rules, generically speaking, to be successful in the job interview.
Okay, perfect. Let's focus on that first rule again. Can you repeat that one to me?
So the first rule is identify the job criteria. And the reason that's really important for virtual job interviews is because there's going to be a massive increase in people being interviewed by AI robots. And the way they interview you is they analyze the words and language that you're using in your interview answers and then cross-reference that against the criteria on the job description. So the more keywords you use, the more likely you are for the robot to pass you. It's a little bit like a Google search. So if you've got a website, Google rank you depending on the keywords you put into your copy on your blog post and on your website. So if you search for like a holiday in Jamaica and your website talks about holidays in Jamaica, you'll rank really, really high. It's the same with the AI bots. They have job criteria. You talk about that stuff and they'll pass you in the first round of the screening interview.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but to do that, to get this first rule right, am I right in saying that you want to be doing your due diligence before you go into the interview? And can you, how do people find those keywords and prepare themselves?
Yeah, it's so easy as well. Like, the problem is most people are lazy when it comes to job interview. And the reason people are lazy is because they're scared and we don't like to do things that we're scared of. So on average, the people who often fail job interviews spend 4 to 5 minutes preparing for that interview. The people who are often successful in a high number of interviews spend 4 to 5 days preparing for each individual job interview. And what that means is they'll research the job criteria, so you can read the job spec. So everyone gets a job spec when they apply for a job and read the advert. If you're in that industry as well, so you've worked there for 10, 15 or 20 years, you know the job. So you just need to start breaking that job down, your business as usual tasks. Like, what is it that I do? Like, when am I having to use my creative process? When am I having to follow procedures? What is the models for this industry? So kind of break down the stuff that you already know. Then the third thing, which is becoming really important now, is understanding the culture and the values and the vision of the organization you're applying for. So what's happened in the previously is the interviewers only interview you on the skills, experiences and qualifications required for that job role. But because we've got stuff like the Great Recession, people are job hopping all the time, people have like 3 or 4 careers now in a lifetime, employers know that people will get a job and within 12 months will jump ship. So they want people who are going to stay there for a long time. So they're doing strength-based and value job interviews. So trying to understand someone's values, their motivational traits, and seeing if that matches the culture of the organization. So they're quite likely to stay within that company. So 2 things you need to work on is understanding the business as usual job role, what you're going to do every day today. So you can talk about that and understand the culture and the values of the organization and talk about how your personality, your temperament, your own values match that organization's values.
And how do you find that company's values? Often there can be a bit of a, we stand for honesty, security, ethics, and that sort of thing. Is that a good representation of what the company really stands for, or how do you work that out?
I remember in the 90s that companies always had the same values, didn't they? Everyone just had these like 6 values, like it's like a copy and paste thing, and no one really lived the values. These days, companies write values that they're kind of proud of and that they live in the day-to-day, especially like big global companies. So there's 3 ways to get inside information. 1, go on the internet. It's, people go on stuff like Glass doors, which is a website where people talk about different organizations. So you can get quite a bit of information from there. Go on LinkedIn as well and find people who either worked or did work for that organization and strike up on a social conversation. It's a social website that. So get into a social conversation and ask them questions about the culture, ask them questions about the leadership and management style, and then also say, what questions did you get asked when you was interviewed, and get like real insight information. And then 3rd and finally is going onto the company website. Companies love to talk about their values. They want to talk about what they're doing outside of their business to help the local communities. They talk about their different stakeholders, and they always list their values, their mission, and their vision. So you can get really detailed, insightful information, which is why the people who are successful spend 4 to 5 days. Because they spend a day going on LinkedIn, speaking to people. They spend a day going onto the company website and going onto different useful websites on the internet, and then spend the rest of the time preparing for that job interview.
Yep, perfect. Love it. All right, and what was rule number 2? Can you jog my memory there?
Rule number 2 is be a self-promoter. Especially in England. I don't know why we do it in England, but we hate saying how great and wonderful we are. We like to say, oh, we're just okay. We was probably lucky that time we made that £1 million for the organisation. You don't want to be doing that in a job interview. It's expected, it's demanded that you say how wonderful, how great, how successful you are. So you need to be a self-promoter.
Yep. Have you got some tips on how to do that tastefully?
Tastefully, yeah. Well, the first thing is if you've got low self-esteem and low self-worth, or you're very nervous in the job interview, the research shows that you're more likely to self-disclose weaknesses than you are to self-disclose strengths. So you get someone saying, like that common interview question, tell me about your strengths, and people who are really nervous will go, well, I'm not very good at working on my own, or I'm not really that creative. So they start listing negative things about themselves, even though the question's about strength. Where people who are highly confident will deliver longer worded answers. So they have a high number of words per answer than a nervous person, which means you naturally reference more job criteria, which is the first tick. But they phrase things in a way where they talk about what they did as an individual. So they talk about their creative process for solving a problem, not just solving a problem. If they worked in a team, they talk about what their role was within that team and what steps and actions that they took to be successful. They don't talk about the team, they talk about their individual steps and actions that they took. But more importantly, and the easiest way to be a self-promoter, is just think about the language that you use, because the language is very powerful. As an example, I might say, I work within a team, or I might say I'm a good team player, or I might say I'm an excellent team player, or I might say every time that I'm collaborating within a team, I will take them by leading and managing and supporting. So the more positive word, the more strength-based word you use creates a positive visualization. So the employee goes, do you know what? I don't know why I like this person, but I just like him. It's because language creates emotions in other people.
Actually, have you got on that last point? Have you got any practice tips to help people really up their language and not just because it would be very normal for most of us to say, oh, I'm a good team player, but then you can practice it and practice it and practice it until you've got that sentence down pat where you're like, I'm an outstanding team player because I collaborated and it just rolls off the tongue. So have you got any practice tips to get from that, to help people upscale their language?
Yeah, definitely. So a couple of little things you can do. So the first one is framing. So the way you frame a sentence creates a different feeling for other people. So as an example, if you go to a supermarket and you see some yogurt, you'll get one yogurt brand saying, this yogurt is 80% fat-free. And then a second brand will say, this yogurt contains 20% fat. So most people will buy the 80% fat-free, even though they both contain the same amount of fat. So you need to think about how you frame what it is you're saying. So that's the first one, framing. The second one, you kind of want to say things in threes. There's this whole thing about when you're a public speaker, when you're an orator, the way you say things has an influence on the audience, and saying things in triplets and threes is a very good rhetoric device. So when you're saying things, say, I'm great, I'm wonderful, I'm amazing is a great way to say it. So say things in threes, got like a nice ring to it, which is really, really good. And then the third one is when you're writing your interview answers, if you do it on like a Word doc, Word will show you different versions of that word. So you can use there's loads of websites you can use for this as well. So just think of different ways to say that same thing. So you might have a word that can be said in different ways that have stronger emotional meanings to it. The other one as well is try to use words that help people visualize what you're saying, because what we see, we feel. So if we see someone being successful and wonderful and great, we kind of get that positive feeling about them. So you can say stuff like, and I do this as a hypnotherapist, you can say stuff like, imagine, and then whatever you say after that, someone will imagine. So if I say, imagine a pink elephant on a red ball, you automatically now think of a pink elephant on a red ball. So by saying stuff like imagine is a command word to get someone to see the next thing that you're going to say. So imagine, if I was working for your organization, I was highly successful because of my leadership and managerial abilities, and you can go into giving your interview answer. But the first thing they hear is imagine me being successful within your team.
Yeah, the power of imagination and visualization is totally underrated. It's that's good. And now, can you remind us the third rule?
So the third rule then is communicating with confidence. And the reason that is so important, because it's not what you say, it's how you say it. Because I could say, Warren, I think you should employ me because I'm very enthusiastic, I'm very hardworking, and I get things done. Or I could say, Warren, you should employ me because I'm enthusiastic, I'm hardworking, and I can get things done. So it's the same thing, but because I got more energy and more passion in my voice, you feel that energy and passion. Now, obviously, I'm going over the top a little bit here, but in the interview, you still need to do that. You need to talk in a very confident way.
Yeah, I think confidence and, as you say, energy. And when you bring energy to the table, one of the big things I have learned is that one of the big things that employers, recruiters, hiring managers are looking for is someone that is positive. And the easiest way to bring a bit of positivity to the table is to up the energy levels and just bring a bit more gusto to it. And with that will come confidence. Another really interesting thing is, in terms of just pure sheer confidence, is the power poses. I can't quite remember, you may have seen the TED Talk, but there's a TED Talk by a lady, and she's from one of the American universities, and she just talks about how when you stand in a power pose, it might be this with your hands on your hips, or whatever that is a strong pose, your cortisol levels drop, your stress hormone drops. Then there's a bunch of other things going on in your body, like biologically happening in your body, that raises up the confidence level. And if you do that before the job interview, and it's easy to do with remote job interviews because the camera's off, stand there, do it. Okay, camera's on. I'm feeling confident. So yeah, I totally agree. Bringing a bit of confidence, a bit of energy to the table is one of the best things you can do.
It's so important as well. It's the mind body cycle. So when you stand in a positive way, you send a signal to your mind saying I'm positive, and then your mind goes, right, you're positive, so you then stand more positive. So it just keeps cycling. And then the same with anxiety. If you kind of like, stood like that, your body's going right, you're in fight or flight mode now, something not right, and you get more and more tense and more nervous.
Yep.
Online interviews are great. So I set my camera up today, so I'm stood up. So you can see my body language. I got my head held high and gesturing a little bit. I got my body wide as well, so I feel big, I feel strong, and it just gives me more confidence to talk to you today. And that's what interviewees can do. Stand in a positive way, have the head held high, think of strength-based words, even say positive things to yourself. I've always been successful, I've always achieved these outcomes, I'm always been told that I'm really good at this particular skill. Like, really build yourself up for that interview. So when you get there, you can just go in and be like powerful and have that presence where people are like, God, there's something about this person. Totally. We need them on our team.
Yep. And they don't need to know that you've been walking around your house for the last 20 minutes saying, I am amazing. I am going to get this job. Like, this job is for me because I rock. All that sort of stuff.
Yeah. Just when you do that, make sure your camera's off before the interview, just in case they come on early and they're like, I'm great. I will get this job.
Yes, thanks to COVID, we've all seen those videos now of people doing random stuff in their living room, it's been too funny. Can you tell us a little bit about your website and your book?
Yes, so my book is What is Your Interview Identity? So your interview identity, it's like a personality test for the job interview. It's a little bit like Myers-Briggs, if you kind of think of that thing. So it's based on your level of perceived knowledge and experience in the job interview, and then your level of confidence in the job interview. So the kind of two things we've been talking about during this interview. The problem is, if you're highly skilled, highly experienced, but you don't talk in that way in the job interview, the employer's not going to know that. Employers only know what you tell them in the job interview. So the way you have like more being perceived as having more knowledge and experience is giving real life examples, giving stories. Most people just give logical answers, but in the interview, give stories, give real life examples, use industry jargon, use industry language, and talk about the theories and models that underpin the processes for your job sector. That's how people see you as someone with high level of knowledge and experience. And then your confidence is the second one, the strength-based language you use, being a self-promoter, having a higher number of words per answer, less filler words, always makes you be seen as being more positive. Stuff like gestures and body language and all that sort of stuff, also embed yourself in there. So your level of knowledge and experience and confidence creates one of 16 interview identities, and that shows you how an employer is quite likely to perceive you. And then the book really talks about how you can improve the identity. So what you need to do, what steps you can take to become more confident, to be seen as having more knowledge and experience. So in the end, you can get more job offers.
Yep, amazing, love it. And there, I had a look before online. Your book is available from a whole stack of bookstores, including Amazon. There will be a link in the description below. Otherwise, you can find Chris at employmentking.co.uk. I'll have that flashing up on the screen. So, you can find Chris there, get some help with your interview skills, because let's face it, by the time you have made it to the interview or you are being interviewed, you're kicking goals and you're most of the way there. You don't want to stumble at the final stumbling block. So, it's something that is well worth reading a book about at the very least. So thank you so much for your time, Chris. It's been great to interview someone with the energy of someone who can talk a lot about interviewing. So that's been great.
Yeah, thanks, Ron. It's been really fun actually having a chat with you. So we'll speak again soon.
Cheers. Thanks, Chris.
I hope you got something out of that. I told you he was a firecracker, didn't I? Anyway, be sure to hit the subscribe button if you're not already subscribed to the channel, and I'll see you in the next video. Have a great day. Bye.